website right now and download my free course on alternate picking mastery. It contains 5 essential exercises that will take you to alternate picking mastery faster than you can imagine. And then I've included my method of how to lay out a practice plan in just 1 to 2 minutes that will absolutely boost your results like nothing you ever tried before. So go download it right now. It's free. A little Mixolydian sound. A new question, and I should say that I read all the comments below these YouTube videos, so if you have anything to ask me, please do so, and I'll answer your questions in a future video. This question is about how to lay out arpeggio shapes, because this guy is just all into it right now, trying to solo with the arpeggio shape, using the major scale / minor scale, same thing, and then, focusing on the chord notes of the chord being played. And so how do you lay out these arpeggio shapes? And the first thing we're taught is that, we have the cage shapes, right? And those are really cool shapes. They're based on the fact that we want to stay vertical when we play. We assign 1 finger per fret, and then we want to play a scale. This is the C major scale. All the way without moving too much back and forth. It's a classical way of thinking, basically. And which is, it's very focused on not moving very much. Economy of movement is the big thing, because then you can execute more accurately. It's easier to execute more accurately. And that's everything in classical music. You don't have to improvise, you don't have to come up with stuff, but you play the thing that's on those notes and you play it perfectly. That's execution, right? And the way to execute in the most accurate way is to make sure that you don't jump around and do all kinds of things as you do it. But when we take this instrument and bring it into rock and jazz and do all kinds of stuff with vibrato and sliding and bending and add distortion, we want to do some new stuff. But the cage shapes are focused vertically, and we have 5 of them. So if you look up the diatonic scale or the major scale, the 5 cage shapes, C, A, G, E, D, then you'll find 5 of them, all focused on staying vertical. Because if you say, okay, let's play this and let's play it all vertical, then you end up with 2 notes on some of the strings, or on one of the strings, in order to stay vertical. If you want 3 notes per string, suddenly you have to play 2 whole tones on 1 string, right? Like this. And that is relevant for arpeggios, because then think about it. We have 7 notes in the major scale, right? And that also means that we have 7 different chords, because every chord, you take one of the notes, in this case the C, and then you take every other note until you have 3 notes in that scale. So you focus on the notes, right? And then you get a C major, triad, 3 notes. You can also do 4 notes, right? And then it makes you end up with a C major 7th, because that's how the notes are really positioned in relation to each other, and that gives you. And then you can do the same thing from the 2nd step, and the 3rd, and the 4th, and the 5th, and then you get 7 different chords. And those chords have arpeggios, which is basically just the notes of the chord played separately, right? Right? And I have a solution for the 3-note version of these arpeggios, these chord notes, and the 4 notes. And I'll just, give it to you. Because when you look at the cage shapes, just think about it. If you have to play the arpeggio shapes within each cage, this is important to understand. If we take the first cage shape, and we then take a piece of paper, we mark it out, and then we start, circling the notes of the C major chord within that. That was the 4-note version, and the 3-note version. Right? Then we end up with a shape, a visual shape on top of that, right? And the same thing goes if we take the 2nd arpeggio, and the 3rd, and the 5th, and so on, right? And then suddenly we end up with 1 cage shape that has 7 different, visually different arpeggio shapes on top of it that we have to learn. But that's just 1 cage shape. Then we have the 2nd cage shape. And if we take the C major arpeggio, again, the C major 7th, or just the C major triad, and lay it out, circle the notes, then we get 1 new shape. And then the next chord, each one of the 7 has a new visually different shape within that cage shape. So we get 7, 14, 21, 28, right? So it's just an enormous amount, but we're used to that because, we learn chords, and that's a different shape for each chord. On a piano, that's very different, right? We have 1 octave, and everything looks basically the same. You can invert it and take the top note and put it in the bottom and so on, but basically it's very simple. On a guitar, because we have the same note multiple places on the neck, you can do all kinds of versions of the simple C major chord, right? And play it in all kinds of places. So we're used to that thing where all the shapes we have to learn. But there's something annoying about the cage shapes, and I don't say that they are bad. They just have something that they're not good at, right? It's like saying this person is not good at carpentry, but he's good at so many other things. But if you want your chair fixed, then please go to another person, right? And that's the same thing here. They are not bad. They just have that limitation. And the limitation, for instance, is that enormous amount of arpeggio shapes that you get if you want. And you can, of course, learn them. No problem, right? But if you want to play them fast, it's a really bad idea to have an uneven amount of notes placed on the strings, and just like with the cage shapes, right? If you want to play a sequence, then you're going to have trouble playing it through these odd shapes where you have 3 notes and 2 notes on one string. So in order for me to get that kind of system in my learning, I designed a way to do the 3-note arpeggios and the 4-note arpeggios. The 3-note arpeggios, I basically just took the sweep picking angle on it, and I said, okay, if you have an A minor triad, right? Then I design it. I lay it out on the fretboard, so I play 2 notes on the bottom string I'm playing and 2 notes on the top. Most of you know this way of laying out that triad arpeggio. And then all the strings in between, I just have 1 note. So I ended up with 2 down there, and that's your choice. You can do that. You can just sit down with a piece of paper, say, okay, the A minor triad is A, it's C, and it's E. Let me take the first A on the low E string, then the next C on the low E string, and then the E on the A, and then what's the next note? It's A. So let's jump to the next string and play that. And then the next note is C. Let me play that on the G, and so on. So you can simply mark them out. And that shape allowed me to do fast sweep picking. And then I go to the next note, the C from the low E string, and do the same thing. And lay it out like that. The same thing here. Right, all the way up. And you can find that's a very common sweep picking. But that also is a good way to lay them out, because now I can actually say, okay, if I have the C major scale here, right? And I've learned the cage shape and I can put them together and to some degree play horizontally, then if I have that let me just say the A minor to get kind of have that in the background there. And I use the C major scale, which is also the A minor scale. And now I have like the A minor shape there, and I can use my cage shape. And I can see the notes of that arpeggio and the cage shape at the same time. Move to the next cage shape. And sometimes I have to move in between 2 cage shapes because the arpeggio stretches. It's right, that next stretches between 2 cage shapes, so I have to integrate them, which is a nice exercise. So I can go and try to visualize the arpeggio there. Now I'm in between 2 cage shapes with my arpeggio here. Right? Always focusing on the notes of the arpeggio. Next one up here. But because the notes are so far apart in an arpeggio, you can't really, the cage shape doesn't cut it when you start really laying them out so you can play them. Because it's not all about it, but it's about having a system of laying them out, because any triad now only has 3 shapes, because there are 3 notes in a minor triad, right? And I have the first one here that I can play from my E string. I can also play it from the A string and say, okay, I want to start on the A string, and I want to lay out 2 notes on the A string, and then 1 in between, and then 2 in the top. Of course, you have to be at a certain level to understand what I'm doing here, right? So now I can play the same. Right? And the same thing goes up here. I can play it from the E string with 2 notes, or from the A string with 2 notes on that string, and then 1 on the others, right? But that's only, 1, 2, 3, bam, I have a minor arpeggio, and it looks the same thing if I'm playing E minor. It's the same thing. Right, so that's a fast thing to learn, right? And then I have the major. There's only 3 notes in it, so. Right. To 1 position here, I'm playing the C major scale or the C arpeggio. Next position, 3. Right. So check them out. 2 notes on the first, 1 and then 2 note on the last string. And then you will have 3 minor shapes and 3 major shapes. Learn those, mix them with the cage shapes, all the 3 note per string, whatever you're used to laying out the major minor scale, right? And then start, and look at it at a chart if you need to and say, okay, how can I? And you have to go in between shapes when you start learning arpeggios, okay? So that's the triad system I adapted to. Then there's the 4-note arpeggio. And that's what I talk about in the video on YouTube here that calls magical arpeggio shape. Arpeggio system lets you whatever, right? So if you search for magical arpeggios, whatever, then you'll find that video. But that's a way where we say, okay, we lay out instead of just having the cage system and just finding the notes within each of the 5 cage shapes, we're going to focus on how we play the arpeggio instead, and just discard of the cage system. And if you do that, you can do 2-1-2 shapes, and that's what I talk about in that video. That's what my modal mastery system is based on completely. It's my biggest program because it's all about how do you utilize these 2-1-2 shapes. If you lay out a 4-note arpeggio, any 4-note arpeggio, so you have 2 notes on the first string, 1 note on the next, and 2 on the next, then you have a way of picking. That's the same every time. Right? And that's what I use. And if you continue that, let's say you start on the A string. Let's just lay out an A minor 7th as a 2-1-2 pattern, giving me 2 notes on the first. We have the A and the C. Right, on the first string, in the 12th and the 15th fret on the A string. Then we have the 14th fret E on the next string, because we need 2 on the first, 1 on the next, and then 2 in the 12th and the 14th. Right? Now I'm playing the notes of the A minor 7th, just laid out as I choose, with 2 notes on the first string, 1 on the next, and 2 on the next. Right? And I can continue. Since I have 2 notes on the G string in the 12th and 14th, I now want 1 note on the next string, which would be the C in the 13th fret on the B string. 12th note and 15th fret, 12th fret and 15th fret on the high E string. So that's 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now I have a nice little that I can play. I can practice the A minor 7th this way. Using hammer-ons and pull-offs, using sweep picking. Right? And every single technique I learn, I can use in any other arpeggio because it's the same way I'm laying them out, right? And suddenly, I use the same techniques, the same way of moving through the arpeggio, and then I can use the scale notes as, passing notes, as we talked about. But that 2-1-2 system allows me to have the same technique every time I play the arpeggio shape. And everything I learn in one arpeggio shape, I can easily convert to another arpeggio shape. So for instance, let's say I have a lick like... That was the A minor 7th arpeggio laid out in a 2-1-2 shape. And then I use the notes in between in the 13th fret, right, from the scale. I can do that in a major 7th context as well. right? Right? That was the C major 7th. Let's play an E minor 7th. Let's play a G dominant 7th arpeggio. Up here, for instance. Right? It's magical. Because it allows me, I can just convert any line that I play to any other arpeggio within the key. What can we do? We can play the B minor 7th flat 5. Right? So suddenly it's Locrian. Right? And you get 4 different arpeggio shapes for each 4-note arpeggio, like with the minor and the major arpeggios. I hope this makes sense to you. If it doesn't, you just, look into it. But if you're on that level where you're really into arpeggios, really want to do the best thing for yourself, then I urge you to look into dividing each 4-note arpeggio up into 2-1-2 shapes, starting on the A string and starting on the E string. And then that will give you a system that you can use to really master this. And for the 3-note arpeggios, then have 2 notes on the first string and 2 notes on the last, and then just... And you can find these 3-note arpeggios on my old website, thewizardofshred.com, under resources. They're just listed up with charts. So have fun with it. And if this was too confusing for you, then just look into it, read up on it, and then come back here and watch it again. And say, you get something new, and then, go back and forth like that. Subscribe for more free videos. Do it. Do it now. Do it.